Este es Ron con inetcomputers.com, otro video para ti hoy. Finally got around to my project of installing Mac OS X on these three older PowerPC G5 Macintoshes. They can only support Leopard 10.5.8, and I finally got my hands on Leopard 10.5.4, and so I'm going to just go ahead and install Leopard and show you an install with Leopard. This computer I'm about to install Leopard on is a PowerPC G5 Macintosh, only 512 megs of RAM. It only supports PC 3200 DDR RAM memory, which can sometimes be hard to come by. And it has two CPUs. I think it's technically a dual core, 2.3 gigahertz. And these fuckers are heavy. So I have the media. Let me show you that real quick. And then I'm going to leave the box over in the corner so that I think it'll help the camera focus better, autofocus. So all you do is power it on. Now, if you are not able to open the optical drive on these older PowerPCs, it has a door for the optical drive, but you have to push on it, and the release doesn't always work for the DVD. You would just push on the door and push down, and then there should be a release button. If not, what you can do is what I can demonstrate. What you do is you turn on, push the power button, and at the same time you hold the left mouse button, and that will automatically open the optical door for you. So I'll just demonstrate that. So I've got the left mouse button held down, and you heard the Apple chime, and it takes a few seconds. Eventually the optical drive door will open. And this is in case you cannot open the door. It could be, sometimes with these optical drives I've noticed the release button is broken off. There it goes. So you should have been able to hear that. Now I'm going to insert the disk, but I already have an operating system loaded, but hopefully it'll boot off the DVD drive instead. If not, I'll just restart Macintosh. I wanted to make sure that this media worked first. The 10.5.4. I think it's going to boot off the DVD. You can install, no, it's going to, that's fine. That's fine. I'm just going to restart it, and then we'll get on to the installation. I'm just going to click restart, and it should boot off the DVD drive this time. You can install, even on PowerPCs, with a flash drive, but you have to go into a special command line, and you have to understand how to use a command line. So it's not user friendly, but it is possible. So it should boot off the DVD this time. My internet just dropped on my other computer. It'll eventually boot up into a installation window. Nope, it's only gonna boot into the, well, I think we can run it from in here. Let's see. Install Mac OS X. Alright, so we're just going to do it this way then. You have to have your password. Oh, I don't have a password. I changed it. I cleared it. You can do that on a Macintosh. Usually you have to set it with a password, but after you log in to the Mac and into the desktop, you can actually set a blank password. Believe it or not, you can. You go into where you would normally go to change the password, and you just don't type in anything, and it will accept it. That might be a tip that you might not know, but whatever. I would consider that a gold tip, just because, well, for me as a reseller, I sell old hardware. Believe it or not, I sell used computers. By this time, I mean, this computer's like at least 10 years old. It should have failed already, so why wouldn't you resell it as used? I warranty them too for about a month if it's used. I do try to put in, if I can, I try to put in refurbished hard drives or new hard drives, but I do test the old hard drives. Come on. Maybe this won't help. I was hoping it would help if I put the install box in the corner so the camera auto focuses. So it looks like it's going to load the install menu. Looks like my internet came back. I am happy with my internet gateway. That's another project. I finished it all up. I installed Linux Mint on my Dell D530. I have Samba running. I have all my data restored. I've got a file server. The internet gateway shares the internet. It's just I have to take the time to make 2 videos showing you how I accomplish that. So back to the Macintosh. If you get an older Macintosh, be aware of what kind of chipset. I think they only made Intel and PowerPC. PowerPC is an older chipset that was created by two or three companies that I do not think are no longer manufactured. This is a Macintosh with a PowerPC. You can, from my understanding, you can only install, we'll just click continue, or at the bottom we'll just click this continue arrow, and then it's going to go Mac OS X Leopard installer. If you click on more info here, it'll tell you what the requirements are for the hardware. I'm not going to go over through all this because as you can see, it's quite lengthy, but what we can do is we can just go quickly through the system requirements. Intel PowerPC G4 G5. PPC stands for PowerPC. It's a different chipset. It's not the Intel. You can install the retail version and the PowerPC only on PowerPCs. I think the gray discs you cannot install on PowerPC. I don't think. So if you have older Macintosh hardware, you might want to become aware of that, because you don't want to waste time and money buying discs that aren't the right discs. You need at least 512 megs of RAM. I can only install 512 because I have 3 of these Macs and I want to make sure I have enough memory for all of them. And what else? Disk space. I'm not going to worry about updating the firmware right now. I'm not really worried about that because the computer works. And it just gives you some advice. Blah, blah, blah. So let's continue. Now, caveat. If you have a Mac that did not come with a hard drive, that's not a problem. What you would do, you'll either get a warning if you try to install Mac OS X, whichever version. This Mac will probably support the first, I don't know about 7, 8, or 9. Yeah, I would think so. But the most current, latest version that you can install is Leopard 10.5.8. You cannot install Snow Leopard or anything newer. You can't do it. The hardware won't support it. I don't even think the Intel Macs can support newer operating systems, but I could be wrong about that. What you would do is you'll get a message. It'll tell you the installation failed or it cannot install. It doesn't give you any advice. It doesn't tell you, oh, the hard drive is not formatted or there is no partition. Go up into utilities. Now these DVDs are more valuable than just as an install. They have tools. What you can do with a Macintosh DVD or on a USB flash drive or even on the hard drive, you could have a second hard drive, but that's I don't want to digress about that. You can go into this, you can make a startup disk, you can reset your password, You can fiddle around with the firmware password utility. There is a disk utility, which we'll go into. There is a terminal. If you understand that Macs are based on Unix, there is a command line. It's very convoluted and very complex. You can run file system checks. So if you have a failing hard drive, you can go into the utilities menu, go into the terminal, and I think it's just FSCK. There could be some variables, but I've done it a few times. And you can even reset a Macintosh command line if you need to. It'll revert it back, but that I don't want to digress about too much. You can go into the system profile. I think the system profiler off a DVD, it might be really slow because there's a lot of, you know, when you boot into Macintosh and you go up into the About Macintosh and I think go into System, and then on the left hand side there's like 20 different areas, the memory, the hard drive. That might run really slow. There's a network utility, and then you can also restore the system from backup, and also you can create recovery media using the DVD, which I'm not going to go into all of these because I could make a 24-hour video. So let's just go into the disk utility because I'm only making this video to show you the installation. If you have a new hard drive, or maybe you want to erase the hard drive or whatever, go into disk utility. If it's a brand new hard drive or a hard drive that you wiped with Derek Boots and Nuke or whatever, it's not going to have a partition. I already have a partition because I already installed Leopard 10.5.8. Well, actually 10.5.4, but I upgraded it. You will not see any of this. You'll only see the CD. You will not see the hard drive. So this is the partition I created, Leopard, but let's not worry about that. You're going to have to create, well, you might, actually I think you will see the hard disk, but you won't see this partition. Go up to the main hard drive, and then you'll see the partition tab. Now if you notice, look at all the different things you can do. You can verify the disk. You can repair the disk. It normally doesn't work, but it's worth a shot. You could try to repair the disk first, and then if it doesn't work, you can go into the command line using the terminal window under utilities and then run like an FSCK scan. But I'm not worried about that. You can erase the partition, or if you have a brand new hard drive or a used hard drive that does not have a Mac partition, this will be blank. If I were to click on down here on the plus, it will create a second partition, but I don't want that. I'm just showing you really quick. If you need to create a partition, you're going to have to. You would go into the partition tab. There would be nothing here. You would click on the plus sign like this, and then you would choose you could set a name and choose the format. I recommend that you use the extended journaled, but you don't have to. There are different choices. You don't have to choose that. But I'm not going to mess with this because I already have a partition, but I'm going to erase it. So since I already have the Mac OS installed, I'm going to erase it. So I'm going to go to the erase tab, and I need to choose the part. You could either go down here and erase the partition. I'm just going to select the hard drive and erase from there. Now if you notice, if you select the partition, there is an erase free space. Caveat with that is that it will erase everything off the hard disk, which will it might take an hour. It's basically, it might be a ones and zeros erase. It's a more complex erase, whereas a quick erase doesn't take that long, which is what I'm going to do because of time constraints. So I'm just going to click on erase, but just know that if you ever choose the erase free space, if I just erase now, what happens, it will leave the user data on it, but when that portion of the hard drive gets used, it will overwrite it. But I don't have any other data besides the operating system, so I'm going to eventually wipe this with Derek Boot and Nuke, but for the demonstration video, I don't fucking care. So I'm going to click erase, and it will only take a few seconds, and then that's basically it. and I didn't change anything. I could also erase it and rename it to whatever you would like. I just, well, did I capitalize the L? You can name it whatever you want. I just decided to name Leopard, just whatever. And then I'm going to erase it again, and it will set the name for it this time. And then we'll get to the install. Now it set the name. Now let's close this disk utility. Now we'll continue by clicking on agree. Again, if you do not partition your hard drive, the installation will fail, but it won't tell you why. It'll just fail. So I'm going to select Leopard, and then this can take a while, but I will, okay, then click install. See, there's really not much you can do. There are some configuration settings. You might want to make sure that all the printer drivers are loaded, because you don't, well, it depends on if it's you and you know what printer you have. You can uncheck all the other printers that you don't need. And then what else? Language translations, you can uncheck everything to save space. I'm just going to leave everything, you know what I'm saying? When I sell computers, even new ones that I build or used ones, I pretty much just use the defaults. And I try to keep it as if the customer bought the computer like brand new from a store, or they ordered it online. And I just stick to the defaults because I do not know what the customer likes. I don't know what they like. What I like, they might not like. It's called subjectivity. My dogmatic subjective perspective, they might not give a fuck. So I try to keep things default. So we'll just click that. Now we can begin the install. It's a lengthy install. At the beginning it tells you it might take an hour and 45 minutes. I think it's about an hour. So I'm just going to talk for a little bit. Now I'm going to skip this because I already tested it. You can test the installation DVD, which I recommend if you bought a DVD maybe off of eBay or even Craigslist or however you obtained it. The first time you get it, I would recommend that you test the DVD just to make sure it's good. That test takes a while, 20 minutes or whatever. Now it's going to install Mac OS. This can take a long time depending on the hardware, the speed of the processor, or how much memory you have. So I'm going to wait until I can see the little dialogue, and then I'm going to probably cut at this point, and I'll be back. Anything further, as you can see now, it's moving along. It takes about an hour, I would say, 45 minutes to an hour. It's a dual core, 2 CPUs, or maybe it was Max with 2 CPUs, but I think it was really just 1 CPU with 2 cores, whatever. 512 megs of RAM. Anything before I take off? We went over, once I get Mac OS X Leopard, which is 10.5.4, which is what was on the box, I can upgrade it to 10.5.8, which I will show you. So now we just sit here back and wait. You should not get any errors unless the DVD media is bad, or but that's why I would recommend that you test the DVD media the first time that you get it. You can install, even with the older PowerPCs, G4s and G5s off of a flash drive, but it's quite convoluted and complex. There's a special, it's like a BIOS menu. It's Apple's version of a basic input-output system that PCs have, but it's command line and you have to know what you're doing. But I think it's possible that you could install off a flash drive. I got the DVD, so I'm not even going to bother with that. I did try it because I had problems getting the DVD, but I did obtain it. An individual on, what was it, Craigslist, and he even advertised on another website that I never heard of. but I found his ad on Craigslist. It was like literally the only, I think there might have been one other ad for, no, I think it was the only ad where somebody was selling Mac OS X, and it was almost the exact same version I needed. What are the fucking chances of that happening? It was on Craigslist, and then he also advertised it on offerup.com. So let's see, I gotta get back to, alright, so as you can see, it hasn't calculated the time, but it takes about an hour, but we know it's moving along. And let me show you the DVD box again. This is what I found. I only paid $20 for it. And it has the original manual. And it has the original DVD. And it tells you what version. So it's 10.5.4, but I can upgrade it to 10.5.8. And I will show you that later on. So, you notice how it says about an hour and 20 minutes? It doesn't take that long. It's kind of like the Microsoft time. You know, Microsoft tells you, well, it's going to take 2 hours, 36 minutes, and 15 seconds to install Microsoft Office, and then it takes 5 hours. I will be back. I will try to make sure I pay attention. I will be back when it's almost towards the end of this dialogue. Adios for now. I'm back. Almost done with the install. As you can see on screen, it stipulates about a minute. This could be Microsoft time. It could be 10 seconds or it could be 2 minutes. Who knows? Although I've noticed with Microsoft time, it's a minute means 2 minutes at least, 5 minutes, whatever. So let me go over a few things while I finish waiting for it to complete the install. It took about an hour, 45 minutes an hour, something like that. With OS X installs, they have a... I'm distracting myself. They have a screensaver, even on the DVDs. So if you walk away from your install and all of a sudden you see a blank screen, don't freak out. Just move your mouse. And then it'll, snap it out of its trance. And that's one caveat. Anything further? Oh, I went and checked out Apple's official copyright pertaining to their media. They're stingy. I guess since 1984, they haven't changed. They do allow you to sell used media. If you get it with a used Mac or a new Mac, you are allowed to resell your discs for whatever you can get, basically, whatever you want to charge. However, they even stipulate you're not supposed to make backup copies, which I have fucking no idea how they can enforce that. Just to let you know, you're not supposed to copy the media and then, burn it to DVD or even CD possibly, or a thumb drive, a flash drive, and sell it. You're not supposed to do that, and I'm not aware that you're allowed, or I don't get into the, well, you're allowed to do this, you're allowed to do that. But in this crooked system about everything is about control, the world order is all about control. Government and military, that's all they do, is they control every facet of your life. And these fascist corporations like Apple and Google and YouTube and Microsoft and blah, 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 they are also control freaks. And that's called fascism. One definition of fascism is when government, military are in bed with corporations. And their job is to control you. So you just have to become aware of that. You're not supposed to, share it on a torrent or a CDN, content delivery network. You're not supposed to share it. You're not supposed to charge money so that people can download the media. Just become aware of that. I don't really give a fuck about laws and all that bullshit. However, you have to realize that these motherfuckers in society, if they catch you circumventing their control freak society, you may, find yourself in legal trouble. And they'll want you to show up in court. And then the court systems are corrupt, criminal, and crooked, especially in America. Well, maybe the entire planet. the British Accredited Registry. Most lawyers in America are members of the bar, and they are corrupt crooks. I'm not saying every lawyer, but they are all part of that cabal. So it looks like it's going to reboot. Time remaining. It finally disappeared. And it does not eject the DVD. It will just reboot itself, and it will ignore. Install succeeded. Mac OS 10 was installed on your Leopard volume. And if you do not click restart, it will restart itself after about 30 seconds. To save time, we'll just click on restart. It does not eject the DVD media, or I think if you have USB, it might not even unmount it or dismount it. It will just ignore the media because it can tell that Mac OS has been installed. Which, if you notice at the beginning of this video, I tried to boot it off the DVD and it booted it into the Mac desktop instead. This is the screensaver. This is the default screensaver that, I don't know if newer versions, I can't remember off the top of my head, but older versions of Macintosh operating systems, this is the default screensaver. Or, excuse me, the default background. Now it's going to reboot. And you'll hear the Apple chime as they extort money from you. I mean, they control you, spy on you. You don't think that Apple is in bed with the National Spy Agency, also known as the National Security Agency? Of course they are. What do you think that whole thing with the San Bernardino shooting and how the government military was trying to petition Apple into forcing them to hand over that iPhone, or they were trying to force Apple into allowing the government to have a backdoor access to all iPhones, not just the one that allegedly was used in San Bernardino, all of them. To me, in my opinion, you need to become aware of society. There is a world order. There are conspiracies. It's so obvious. You need to keep an eye on these crooked corporations. Now, Apple told the government military basically to fuck off. I think it was the FBI. But one of these days, even Apple will cave in. Or maybe that was political. Who knows? That could have been a mind fuck just to fuck with you. Oh, Apple is good. The other corporations are bad. Now, I don't know if I'm going to get a copyright for this, music. You never know anymore. So, all right. Now, okay, it's finished installing. Well, we get that. I don't remember this occurring the first time I installed. Maybe I need to eject the DVD? No, it just does that. Well, it could be that Apple's theme music is copyrighted. Before you begin, okay, we have to calibrate the keyboard. Now, I'm not using a standard Apple keyboard. I don't have any. I don't even have a Apple mouse. You don't have to buy those if you don't want to. For many years, even with G3s, Mac G3s, the little iMacs, they're very heavy, but they're an all-in-one. They will support PC-style keyboards. Now, Mac, from my understanding, I've never ran across a Macintosh computer hardware-wise that had a PS2 port, but they do support USB. So now with this Mac, yeah, the keyboard did work. I was able to get into the Apple's version of the BIOS, with this keyboard, but the lights didn't light up right away, but whatever. So I don't know if you had a Mac keyboard, you might not have to do this, but I'm going to have to do this. Your keyboard cannot be identified and will now be usable until it is identified. So there's only two things you have to do. Press the key only once and do not hold down the key for a long time. Press the key immediately to the right of the shift key. Press the key immediately to the right of the shift key, which would be the left shift key. Press the key immediately to the left of the shift key, which they're talking about the right shift key. Let's try that again. Oh, my bad. There we go. That's all you have to do. Now, with some Mac installations, I never had to do that. Okay, your keyboard has been identified. I'm just going to accept the default, which is United States. I'm not European. I'm glad. If you're offended by that statement, I don't give a fuck. It was Europeans that stole this land from my ancestors. So if you wonder why I get agitated, that's a big part of it. 95% of my ancestors were murdered off by Europeans. I'm just going to choose the default, but you could change that if you wanted to. Just click continue. United States, but if I wanted the language English to be different, I would choose one of these other ones. But United States is sufficient. You can also click show all. You might be able to choose other languages, I'm assuming. Click continue. US English is fine. You could click on show all. Continue. Now, would you like... Okay, if you already own a Macintosh, you can transfer the data, which means your information from another Mac, from another volume on this Mac, which probably could be a second hard drive, and even I would say maybe a DVD. I'm not sure about that. Maybe a USB flash drive. I'm not sure about that. From a Time Machine backup. Time Machine is Macintoshes, even with High Sierra, even the most newest current version as of this video creation, High Sierra, which I think is 10.13, I think. I'm pretty sure. Or 10.14, but I think it's 10. Here, let's not sound like an idiot, because I know the trolls can't wait to attack me. They're going to attack me anyways. Oh, that's right. I disabled all the comments on all of my videos, and even including the discussion tab. So in order to troll me, you're going to have to troll me on my private website, ain'titcomputers.com. And if you fucking try to fuck with me at that website, guess what? I monitor my server logs, including IP addresses. Just like the NSA, only I'm not the National Spy Agency. I don't snoop on people. I respect their privacy, but if you're going to troll me and fuck with me, then you know what I'm saying? Whoops. Yes, it's 10.13. I have an easier time remembering operating systems just by their number. I don't give a shit about these, names. Panther, Lion, Leopard. On Apple, on Microsoft, it's Windows XP, Windows Vista, Windows, Millennium Edition. I don't give a shit about that crap. Time Machine is free. So I'm going to choose the default, which is I don't need to transfer any data. But you do have that possibility. Click continue. Now, you do not have to enter in your Apple ID. Now, caveat, this is very important to me. If you, the one problem, if you start using your Apple ID on an Apple computer, what happens is that, if you might not know this, you can log into your Apple ID and there's a section in your account where it shows you all of the computers that you signed in with your Apple ID, and what can happen is that your Apple ID will get attached to that computer. So if you sell that Macintosh on eBay or Craigslist or One Offer or wherever, or even if you just give it to somebody, even if you erase the hard drive, I think, I could be wrong about that, but I think even if you erase the hard drive or you keep the hard drive, it's possible that your Apple ID still goes with that Mac by serial number. So just become aware of that. So, I'm going to try to sell this Mac. I don't want a Mac. I don't want my Apple ID anywhere on these computers. So click continue. You do not have to enter in your Apple ID. It'll ask you later, or you can add it later. Now, with the older Macintosh operating systems like this one, which is 10.5.4 technically, which is Leopard, You do not have to have an Apple ID to upgrade it. However, with newer versions of Macintosh, Sierra, High Sierra, El Capitan, etc., they require an Apple ID now. So just become aware of that. The registration information, you do not have to enter in this information. If you click continue, it'll warn you, but you do not have, you just click continue, and it will not require you to fill that out. But you can fill it out if you want to. You can register it. If it's an old computer, I don't know why you would, but whatever. Create your account. I only provide as much information as I have to. If you do not know what fields are required, all you have to do is click on continue, and you will not be able to get past this. It'll warn you which fields are required. So then try again. You have to enter at least a name and a share name. So I'm just gonna just gonna enter user because it's generic, and user. Now you can change that. You can enter in anything you want. The reason why I use generic usernames is because a lot of the computers that I make videos on are either not mine, because I'm a computer repair technician, or I resell used and new computers. Well, I sell new computers and I resell old ones. But you can enter anything you want in there. You can customize or you can personalize it. Now, sometimes with my customers, I ask them, well, what would you like me to set your username as? Or if they bring me a computer and I have to reimage it and I know what their username is because I logged into their computer and I just know, or they gave me their password, then I know what I rename their new computer with the same name, because I just like to personalize things for my customers. If I do not know what their username was, or their hard drive crashed and I didn't ask them, I just set something generic. Another thing I never do is I never set a password, but I think you have to. Yes, you do. But with Apple, you can blank it. And even Windows, Microsoft Windows, you can blank the password. And I think even Linux. Oh, you know what? It's not going to ask me for a password, is it? Oh, it's not. You don't have to set a password. Good. You know why I like that feature? Because when it comes to my computer repair customers and when I sell computers, I don't want them to have to know a password, because they could lose it, they could forget it, then they call me back and that might irritate them, that might piss them off. Whereas I like to set up Windows without a password, Linux without a password, and Mac, so that when I hand over the computer or I sell the computer to my customers, it just logs in and they don't fucking have to worry about entering anything. And then they can set the password themselves later. All right, so we're done now. So we'll just click down here. It just tells you about Time Machine, which allows you to back up your computer. Okay, email. It's got a built-in email. It's got chat. It's got organize your work. All right, so now we're going to be taken to the desktop. It'll just take a few seconds. This is the first time. There's the default background of the older Macintosh installations. Now I'm going to try to eject the DVD, and I want to show you something really quick. Here it is. I don't want... So this opens by default the file manager, I guess you want to call it that. If you notice, you can see my network, but those drives are not accessible but out of the box, a lot of times Mac will be able to browse your network, your Microsoft computers and your Linux computers. I want to eject the DVD, and I don't need this, and I can eject it. I want to show you something really quick. So let's eject it. And here it comes. These are the dark discs or the black discs. From my understanding, the gray ones won't work on these PowerPCs, and as it blurs out. And let me set this aside. When I looked into what I could install onto this PowerPC G5, I found out that supposedly the gray discs won't work, which I think the gray discs are ones that when you buy the Macintosh, they come with the gray discs. I think this might be a retail version. Let's look at it. There's different types. I think the gray discs are the recovery discs that come with the Macintosh when you buy them new, and then there's also the black discs, which I think are retail. Now you can use retail on Macs that were used or already previously paid for, but the gray discs could be for the Intel chipsets, which will not work on these older PowerPC chipsets. So you might want to become aware of that. I don't think there's that many people that are, reinstalling Leopard or Tiger, older versions of Mac, but you never know. That's it. Now, before I run, everything's installed. You get a built-in mail program. Safari does work, but caveat, some websites like YouTube do not work with older versions of Safari, but Google works. iChat, there's an address book, there's a calendar, there's iTunes, but it's going to be an older version of iTunes, Spaces, and then Time Machine, which allows you to back up your data. And then System Preferences on Apple, pretty self-explanatory. It's the control panel version on Apple of Windows. Linux, a lot of Linux distributions, I do not like their system menus because I've noticed more and more as they get bloated, they take away some of the... It depends on the window manager, but I don't want to digress about that. As you can see here, you can go in and, check out your printers, blah, 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 blah. This is the equivalent of control panel in Windows. So let's close that. Before I run, there's the Mac. Click the Mac, and you can go in, check about this Mac. It'll tell you quickly what speed, what operating system, and how much RAM. If you click on more info, this is the menu that I was talking about at the beginning of this video. You see how many subcategories you can select on the left hand side. If you try to access this menu off a DVD, I think it's which one was it? Let me think. Some of these down here can take forever to load. But anyways, so let's close that. You can now, I don't think the App Store, I could be wrong, but I don't think you can install the App Store on these older Macs. Off the top of my head, I don't remember or know when they started to... Back in the day, you could just upgrade your Mac through the system menu. With newer Macintoshes, you have to have the App Store installed, I think, and then you literally go through the App Store, and then that's where you have to use your Apple ID. I think you can go into System here, System Preferences to update, or you can just go up to the Mac, click the Mac, and then choose Software Update. Now, with this Macintosh, it takes 3 times. You have to go through this process 3 times, and then all the software will get updated. The first time you check, I think, will be 10.5.8, which is the most current version, the latest and greatest that this PowerPC G5 will accept. So there's iTunes, and there it is. That's what I want. Mac OS 10 update combined. See, back in the day, it was easier to update your Mac. Now you have to use an Apple ID. You know what I'm saying? And then that Apple ID gets attached via serial number to that Mac. Anything before I run? I went over the copyright, but you are allowed to purchase used media. If you have older media, you can sell it for whatever you can get for it. You're not supposed to create backup copies, but I have fucking no idea how Apple can enforce that. I just don't know how they could enforce that, but I'm just saying. So I'm going to upgrade this. Well, you know what? I'm not going to. I'm going to wipe this hard drive with Derek, Boot, and Nuke. because I don't want to give out a hard drive that has any problems when I sell this Macintosh. But in order to update this Macintosh 10.5.4, which is Leopard, you have to go in here 3 times. There will be these 2 updates, then you have to reboot. Then there's a second time there'll be some updates, and then you have to reboot, and then there'll be a third time where there'll be more updates, and then you have to reboot. But it will update iTunes, it'll update Safari, but it's not going to be the latest and greatest versions. But we can even test the internet, and then I'm going to run. We can just test Safari really quick. You can install other browsers. Now, that's another thing I don't do with most computers that I sell. Safari can't verify the identity of the website. Okay, we'll just click continue. It will work. Now, you know what? When I updated it, I already went through the update process before I installed it in this video. When you update Safari, it will work with Apple's website, believe it or not. Right now, it's too old of a version, so it looks, it doesn't work 100%. But Google might work. We can go to Google. You can install other software, but when I sell computers, here, Google works, look. We can, let's see, Mac OS 10.5.8 PowerPC. It works. We can even click on images. See, it works. Google works still, but not all websites are going to still support older web browsers. In closing, when I sell computers, if they already have a web browser that comes with the operating system, like a lot of Linux distributions and Macs, I don't install a web browser. On older versions of Microsoft Windows, like Windows XP and even Vista, it does not come with a web browser. Newer versions of Windows, does Windows 8 come with a web browser? No, I don't think it does, because Microsoft Edge, I think, was developed after Windows 8. Windows 10 comes with Microsoft Edge and Internet Explorer. Well, you know what? Older versions of Windows, come with Internet Explorer, but a lot of people don't like Internet Explorer. So Microsoft's the only operating system I will install, either Chrome or Mozilla, for my customers. Other than that, I don't even change anything. Let's say I was going to sell this tomorrow. I would just go in here and update it, which takes 3 times. You have to go in here 3 times. Three times, and then 3 reboots, and then that's it. I'd be done. And then my burn-in test would just be to leave it overnight. I'd leave the computer running overnight or over the weekend when I came back into my office. As long as, I could shut it down and it didn't freeze up, that's it. And then I sell. So that is the Apple macOS 10.5.4, but upgradable to 10.5.8 installation on a PowerPC G5 Mac. Adios.